persistent. Just after midnight, men on the deck of Enterprise see an indication of enemy success.
Off in the distance, a white flash came over the horizon. And come to find out, it was the USS Intrepid that actually did take a torpedo.
One of the Betty bombers wiggles through the task force defenses and strikes the fellow carrier. It's a costly blow.
11 men that night died, and 17 more were wounded.
The American task force remains on alert until early morning, when the Japanese Bettys finally break off from their evening of stalking. Enterprise herself is still safe, and she has not had need to fire her guns and give away her position. But now, it's the Americans' turn to deliver a little nighttime chaos. In late 1943, the TBF Avenger torpedo bombers aboard USS Enterprise got some new technology. Airborne radar. American admirals wanted some of their aircraft carriers to be able to fight at night. Enterprise Avengers are outfitted with wing-mounted radar antennas and an internal scope for the Radio Man bombardier in the well of the plane. This distinction falls to the Avengers for purely practical reasons. Torpedo bombers are bigger than the fighters or dive bombers, and the new radar gear is bulky and takes up space.
It wasn't too great. They had Yagi antennas under each wing, and you had to move the antenna back and forth. It didn't do it automatically like present radars. So in order to position the scan on your tube, you had to move these antennas.
Today's aircraft, by contrast, you have computer assist dials and multi-function interface screens to control your radar search area.
Despite the rudimentary state of the art of this new nighttime search system, for the first time, a naval bomber, theoretically, can both navigate and locate enemy targets in darkness. Hitting those targets using radar is another matter, and many experienced pilots have their doubts. But the commander of the Avenger Squadron aboard Enterprise adamantly believes it's possible. Lieutenant Commander Bill Martin, a 6-year naval aviation veteran, has faith that radar will allow his air crews to deliver some nocturnal hell to the enemy. Weeks prior to the action at Truk, during stopovers at both Pearl Harbor and Espiritu Santos, Martin ordered night training, navigation and bombing practice with the new radar systems. Confident his squadron could operate proficiently at night, when planning for the Truk offensive began, Martin urged that a night raid be part of it. Now, at 2 a.m. on February 17, 1944, day 2 of the assault on Truk, Bill Martin's torpedo bombers are launching from the Enterprise flight deck. They are setting out on the first nighttime American carrier bomber attack of the Pacific War. Ironically, the officer primarily responsible for the remarkable event is not with them. In a freak accident 2 weeks ago, Lieutenant Commander Bill Martin slipped while exercising on one of the ship's steel decks and broke his elbow. No amount of pleading has convinced his superiors to let him lead the mission anyway. So Martin must watch his 12 bombers launch, one at a time without him, and wish them well. The Avengers quickly form into a tight squadron and begin the 90-mile journey to Truk Atoll. After roughly an hour's flight, the last several miles at an altitude of 500 feet to skirt below Japanese radar. The bombers come within range of Truk's barrier reef. They're vulnerable at only 500 feet of altitude, but they believe the danger is mitigated because they should be invisible to anti-aircraft gunners in the blackness. They get a surprise.
As they were flying in, one of the planes starts taking all this fire, and they can't figure out why am I taking all this fire? You know, it's at night, they're not supposed to see me, they can't see me, what's going on? And then he looked on, and he realized that he had his running lights on, so he just flipped them off and continued on with their mission.
It's a close call, and this incident has added to the danger for the bombers because it's marked their intended path for the anti-aircraft gunners. Minutes after crossing the reef, the 12 Enterprise torpedo bombers separate into groups of 4 and approach Truk Harbor from multiple directions. Individual planes then peel away from their groups to swoop in and inflict radar-guided havoc. The Avengers zero in on the enemy ships that show up as the biggest blobs on their radar scopes. Among the targets in the water below are 2 tankers and 11 freighters. As each plane starts its bombing run, it climbs to 1,000 feet to gain momentum. Then it swoops down to as low as 250 feet above the water to release its bomb.
When they dropped their bombs, they would have to be on a delayed fuse because they were flying so low. If they didn't have it on a delayed fuse, they would also blow themselves up.
This give you about 3 to 5 seconds to get away, then it would blow up.
For nearly half an hour, in the face of intense but inaccurate anti-aircraft fire, the Enterprise Avengers continue making runs on the harbor. Desperate to aid their anti-aircraft gunners, the Japanese strike a spotlight and frantically search the darkened sky. Finally, with their bombs expended, the torpedo bombers climb away from Truk Lagoon and head for home.
When we left there was several ships burning in the harbor there.
2 tankers and 11 freighters are damaged or sinking. The bombers make it back to Enterprise and begin touching down on the flight deck just as the sun is peeking over the horizon. 12 Avengers went out, but only 11 returned. What happened to the missing plane is still unknown. Even so, the mission has been a success.
It's the first time that aircraft carrier-based aircraft took off and then used radar to guide themselves into the target area, deliver their ordnance, and then return to the carrier at night.
Night carrier landings are especially difficult because of poor visibility. The only illumination on the flight deck is a dim strip of lights down the center. A pilot must depend on the LSO, landing signal officer,